Hey, good morning. This is Jay Wilson with the Jay Wilson Show. Glad that you could join me wherever you are in the world. Good morning, good evening, or good night. I'm hoping you're doing well. I'm hoping you're feeling well. We want to continue our series on surrender. Surrender is a very important thing. Surrendering to our higher power, which is God. We call him the Most High. The true and living God, okay? And surrendering to our significant others, surrendering to the process that the Most High has us on, okay? Now, I am a counselor. I have been counseling behavior modification, substance abuse for 25 years. And I've been a life coach for 8 years, international. And I have seen a lot in the process of relationship recovery. Yes, I am rocking the gray this morning. I'm glad it just kind of grew out like that. To be honest with you, I think nowadays it's sexy. I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna explain why. Because the gray says I'm older. Now, I was at a gas station the other day, and there was a gentleman who was 31 years old, full gray hair. He said, I've been gray since I was in my 20s. Okay, so that's a natural phenomenon that happens, but I'm talking about the natural gray that comes in with age. The Word of God talks about honoring the gray hair, the gray head. And that's the issue that we have today. I'm noticing that. As I'm talking about rocking the gray beard on this morning, or the peppered gray, it's peppered gray. I'm not all gray. Okay. And yes, there are 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds that have gray. But when you see that, it says this person is older. This person has been through something. This person has experience. Okay. And this is how it was before. When you were in a tribe, whether you were in Europe, Germanic tribes, Africa, Zulu tribes, or you were in Mexico, the Tainos, the Caribbean, the Aztecs, wherever you were in the world, okay? The Native American tribes, the Choctaw, the Cherokee, there was a hierarchy. And when you mess with the hierarchy, then that's when you begin to have issues and problems in society. And they had an understanding. Now, when I was growing up in church, we had a minister who would always say controversial before he went into anything that was considered taboo, all right? Or, as we call it, politically incorrect. Well, thank God for podcasts and video podcasts, because that is the language of podcast, is politically incorrect, as named the show. But that being said, when you were in the tribe, these people had lived this way for thousands of years. They knew it worked, and it was natural. Okay? The older men would school the younger men on how to be men. Imagine that. They would be weaned off of their mother. So in the beginning, it was mom. Why? Because moms nurture. Women have a natural nurturing nature. Men have a natural securing nature. Meaning a man wants to protect, a woman wants to nurture. A man is physically built to protect. Now, there are some tough girls out there, and we've seen female warriors. But we understand that this is something that is natural, that a man is naturally built to protect, not only in his body, but in his mind, okay? Then a woman is built physically to nurture. Okay? That's why men are more muscular. That's why they have less fat on their body. That's why And that fat that women have is something that is like an incubator for when they're carrying a baby. Okay, so we all know that. You know that the body index, the national body index, our universal explains that very clearly. And when women lose a certain amount of body fat, their estrogen levels change. Okay, and becomes an issue. So let's go further. So in a tribe, a woman rather, would have a child, and around 10, 11, 12 years old, sometimes a little younger depending on what tribe. But basically, after that mother had nurtured that child to good health, then that child would be weaned off their mother and now transferred to the father if it was a male. If it was a female, then now she would go to a different level of training with the mom. She would learn how to do the things that her mother did or was doing, her tasks, her duties around the home. The young boy would go out and he would learn how to manage the responsibilities of a man, but from his age group, okay, both of them. The man was not, or the boy was not allowed to get married. He wasn't allowed to interact in a certain way with the females or the girls until he went through several processes. Number one, the process of being weaned off of his mother and to his father's care. Number two, going through the process of seeing how his father operates. All right. And they did it with wisdom. They didn't just throw their kids out there. And I mean, I am out here in God's country. This is a beautiful, beautiful landscape here that I'm seeing. Anyway, hi. They weren't thrown in baptism by fire. This was a strategic and well thought out structure and process that had happened for thousands of years. And we tinkered with it. We messed with it, didn't we? Okay. Someone said it wasn't me. Okay, well, maybe not, but we're the ones continuing it. Okay. And what do I mean? When that boy would come to a certain age, he would see his father. He was working with his father on the fishing boat or working with his father in the hunting or preparing things. And they would have him in a certain area where they were protected, but that they could see what was going on to give them access. Okay. To give them contact with what manly responsibilities looked like and to be out there, to be exposed to that. There was exposure. Same thing for the young girl in the house or outside in the village or what they were preparing. She was able to see, and she had a small responsibility, not big. It is so wrong to give a child adult responsibilities when they do not have the mental and emotional capacity to handle it. All because we've decided that we want a certain amount of freedom from relationship or etc. We won't go into that right now. But now we put the responsibility on a young man or a young boy who has never seen fatherhood or a manhood demonstrated to him or a female responsibility demonstrated to her. And unfortunately, now in this society, and it's becoming more and more apparent, where we're trying to switch roles, taking away from the natural and the normal. This is natural. Do you see how beautiful this is? That's natural, okay? Now, cities are okay, but my God, when you get out here, you realize that what's natural is beauty, and you don't want to mess with that. There's an ecosystem here. The animals, the bugs, the trees, the grass, the water. There's an ecosystem. And in that ecosystem, everything is taken care of. If it's knocked out of balance, then something dies. Okay? You can take 100 men and take 100 women, and I'm going to tell you, most of those women are going to be nurturers, and most of those men are going to be protectors and providers. It's a done deal, because that is what the Most High made. That's the nature he gave us. You can fight against that nature. And we see a lot of people who are fighting against that nature. But that's what you're doing. You're fighting against your nature. And you'll see the repercussions of that, and not the benefits of going along with your nature. Okay? Now, so what happens in that, let's say it's a fishing village and he takes him out, he sees the boats and he's helping him, put together the nets or to do little tasks. When he gets a certain age and his father sees that his muscle has developed, because it's the physical development first, that he can handle certain things. Once the mother sees that she's able to carry certain things, she's able to think through certain things, then she will give her a responsibility, okay, or more responsibility, and it continues to grow. Now we're going to get past that real quick. Fast forward. Now they are young adults. They have participated in the work of the home or the work of whatever job outside of the home, responsibilities, and they have learned how to do these things, okay? Now, understand something. They have the physical capacity to manage, and I'm just basing it on what it was done for thousands of years. This young lady, now at 14, 15 years old, she knows well how to take care of the home, how to take care of the responsibilities around the outside of the home, how to manage. The boy knows how to manage now at 14 years old, how to manage certain aspects of the ship or the boat, the net, how to fish, how to hunt. Okay? They understand that, and so now they are released into that as a responsibility, and they're tested. Okay? Each level goes level for level. So now they're tested, and when they pass that test, now they are able to participate fully. Okay? But they're still not a man. Now, once they go through the process of failing, doing well and failing and doing and failing, then now the mother's going to say, no, you're mixing it wrong, or you've picked it wrong, or that's not ripe yet, or you're sowing that wrong, you're kneading that wrong. Whatever the case may be, hey, you're pulling the net the wrong way. It should be across. It should be this way, that way. You're steering that the wrong way. There was a lot of instruction. We don't have a lot of instruction nowadays. There's a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling, and a lot of streaming. Our kids are learning from the internet way more than they're learning from us, because we're not taking the time to teach them, because we are on the internet ourselves. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with the internet. It's a beautiful thing. I love it. Okay? I love what I can learn and what I can understand, especially being, autodidactic. I can see things, I can read things, and then I can do them. Okay? But it can become a vice. All right? So let's fast forward. I want to get to this part. This is very important. When they finally are at a point where they see that their mental capacity, okay, has caught up with their physical capacity, okay, then that's when, okay, now this is your responsibility, and now you're able to do this. Now I'm not going to give you any more instruction. If you do it if you do it the wrong way, there's a correction, okay, because you know the steps to take now. And I've made sure of that. All right. So now it's your responsibility. You're not just tagging along. You're not just learning anymore. Now that's your responsibility. Okay. This happened in every village across the world for thousands of years. We didn't leave children to themselves. We didn't leave teenagers to themselves to do what they wanted. Okay. We see what happens when we do. Okay. And parents are responsible for that. All right. Now, at a certain age, there was a coming of adulthood. Now, did you notice that? They didn't call them an adult until they went through a process of learning what it meant to be an adult, meaning the things that it takes, how to take care of their bodies, how to take care of their home, how to take care of the farming, the fishing, the gardening, whatever it was, how to prepare the food, what plants were good to be eaten, what were good for medicine, what were poison, which ones were poison, everything. They knew everything that they needed to know. We want to call our children adults because their bodies are physically at the level of an adult, but they have no mental capacity hardly. And we haven't gotten to the emotional capacity yet. So let's get in there. So now that they get to that level where they have the mental capacity, now the physical capacity, they've been trained, the emotional capacity, mental capacity, now they're going to go into something which we call, this is the rite of passage. There was a rite of passage for a man. The rite of passage for a female was different. Okay? It had a lot to do with her physical makeup, but her physical makeup with her mental makeup was very important. But with a man, he had a rite of passage. With a woman, as soon as she was menstruating, she was considered a female, and in different cultures they would have, or a woman, and different cultures they would have certain not rite of passage, but they would have ceremonies or celebrations, celebrating her stepping into womanhood. Now, unfortunately, in certain societies, at that point, they would marry them off. Wrong. Extremely wrong. Okay? I'm going to give you my take on that, why they continue to do that, at another show. Because it was obvious that a 12-year-old girl was not prepared, or 8-year-old girl was not prepared to be married, okay? Let alone a 16 or 18-year-old. Well, let's just, that wasn't every one, but there were some that were out there that was like that. With the boy, he didn't have any value until he was able to protect. And that's where a rite of passage usually had to do with, or included, hunting. Being able to go out and to kill an animal, to hunt the animal, to prepare the animal for feasting, okay? And a lot of times they did this by themselves, okay? So if you made it back to camp, good. If you didn't, well, you didn't make it, okay? Now, a lot had to do with them surviving on their own, away from the other men, by themselves. Sometimes they would spend 7 days or a certain period of time out on their own. They had to hunt, they had to fish, they had to sleep, catch, protect themselves in that process. Why? Because if I have a family and I don't know how to protect myself, how can I protect my wife and my young ones? Okay? So everything made sense. When it came to that responsibility, because of the way that a man is built, that is what in his nature, that's what a man was trained to do, was to protect, to provide, to hunt, to protect. The woman was trained to nurture. She was trained to take care of the home, to make sure that the garden, to make sure that the animals around the house, to make sure that the preparation of the sustenance, which is the food, the water, the well, all of that. Every ancient movie you've seen, that's exactly what was happening. Why? Because while the man was hunting, while the man was protecting, while the man was building the houses and extending the property or the land that they were on, okay, out working, digging, fishing, hunting, the woman was preparing what he needed to maintain his health, to continue to provide strength and sustenance and nourishment, because that is what it's in a woman's heart. A woman has that in her heart and her nature more than men. Okay? And like I said, we could fight against our nature, and society is trying to do that. It's trying to force that. But we still have some real ones out there. Yeah, I see you ladies. I see some real ladies out there. Okay? And I grew up with 5 sisters. Very smart, very wise, very strong. Okay? And fast. So I would tell you, I am not one of those guys who believes that women are weak and they aren't able to protect themselves and different things like that. But I will tell you, if a woman is in the street and a man comes up to hurt her, she's not going to look to another woman to protect her. She's going to look to men most of the time. Okay? And unfortunately, in certain societies, the woman's going to be the one who protects her because the men have lost their position. They've lost it here, and so they've lost it here. And that's a sad thing. Okay? Now, but there are still some good men out there. I see you guys. I see you all. I know you out there. I'm talking to you, and I'm talking to the ones who need to wake up. Okay? And you can identify those men who understand it because they have a different light. Those women have a different light. They have a different feel about them. Now, once this male passes his rite of passage and he becomes a man, and in some societies, that's 30 years old. Usually that's a benchmark, okay? It's around 30. In Hebrew tradition, you weren't a man until you were 30. So, young girls, let me explain this to you because you guys need to hear this part too, okay? You 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds, let me explain this to you. A man wasn't a man until he was able to, let me say it this way. A male could not marry you until he proved that he was a man, that he could provide for himself, that he could hunt, that he could fish, that he could work, that he knew how to continue to do those things over and over again and not just one or two times. Okay? You're marrying boys. You're dating boys. And that's the problem. You're dating a boy who has not been proven as a man only because he's a male. Okay? Now, we all know that a female has a female, okay, structure or physical structure. And at a certain age, I would say around, we talk about puberty. So let's say around 14, 15 years old, a girl has most of what she's going to have as a female, okay? And so is a male. That woman, that male can impregnate, and that female can become pregnant. That is, so your body, okay, can produce a child. It can. So it is at a state of maturity, all right? But your brain is not an adult yet. Your emotional capacity is not an adult yet. And that's what the problem is. The problem is that we, as a society, have signed off on young people marrying each other, and that girl, does not have the mental or emotional capacity and has not demonstrated being a woman, nor the male. Okay, that's the problem. And then they raise children, these two people who have no idea how to be a man or a woman, a father or a mother, a husband or a wife. They decide that they're going to raise a child. My God. Animals do a better job at taking care of their children. Animals, you're hearing me, because they have a hierarchy, they have an understanding, they know what they need to train their children to do. And I'm talking about animals, lions, tigers, bears, oh my. Let me dive into this part right here before I let you go, because you already know there's a part 2 on this one, okay? When we allow let me start it this way, and this is the last point I'll make. A young woman at 20 years old to 30 years old is at her highest value. Why? Because that is where a woman is able to produce a child safely. That's the window, okay? And in her 30s, the risk becomes a little higher, but in her 40s, most definitely higher. And then we won't talk about 50s and 60s, although there are some phenomenons out there that's not a normal thing, okay? So a woman's value, okay, based on science, because we are a society of people who produce children, so that we can continue the next generation, or human beings would die, right? So men can't have children, women can have children, men can impregnate women and can take care of children, but they can't have it. So that being said, and we know this is true, by science, this is not of my own accord, I'm just basically telling you exactly what science has proven. People who are atheists, that do not believe in God, okay? People who do not care about the gender wars, one side or the other, or the gay movement, one side or the other, are simply saying, this is science. So, in that case, if our society is only maintained or continues by males impregnating women and women having children and males and females protecting those kids and growing them into the next generation, then that means that a woman's main value, at least at a base level in the beginning, is the ability to produce children, which means that she is more value the younger she is. Now, did you hear the way I stated that? Very carefully, okay? But guess what? Check the facts, you know what I'm saying is true. So right away, a female who is healthy is valuable right away, especially if she's beautiful, okay? So a woman does not need to have a job. She doesn't need to have a lot of money. All she needs to have is a good mind, good emotional capacity, and a healthy body at her age, at a young age, and that is her value, all right? Now, let's go into the male, because this is where we're messing up. A male does not have any value when they're 20 years old, not even a little bit, okay? Are they valuable? Let's put it this way. We're looking at the word value. They are not valuable to a female. Now, in this debased society, they would only be valuable to a female because they're young and strong, and you know what I mean. Young, strong, all night long, whatever you want to say, okay? We cut through the mess on this channel, we get right to it. And that's the only value they have. They do not have the emotional nor the mental capacity to be a father, to be a husband, and barely coming into manhood. So a male does not have they're not on the same level. That's why women get out faster. Women are more mature faster, their mental capacity faster, their bodies are prepared faster. They are ready at 20 to 25 years old right away. That's marriage material, okay? If they want to take college courses when they get out of high school to learn, okay? The wise women, they go to college so they can learn how to be better ladies, how to manage finances, how to manage, how to be administrators, because this is what it takes in a family. It's a business too, okay? And they are educated, and they have been trained to work in the house and outside of the house to know how to manage, because the capacity has to be there to be able to do what you need to do to be a good helpmate or a good partner to that man. So a girl who is around, or a woman who is around 20 to 25 years old, in that state, in good health, mental capacity, emotional capacity, is ready for marriage. Okay? She's been trained. She has that. Now, a male, no. A boy or a young man at 20 to 25 years old is not valuable because he doesn't have the financial capacity, the work capacity, the mental capacity or emotional capacity to be a man. A man's value is based on providing. Can he provide for you? Can he provide for you? And you say, well, I can work too. Well, watch this. You can work, but you're a lady, so now you become pregnant, and now you can't work, and you married this young thing. Okay, young, strong, can go all night long, but guess what? He doesn't know how to work. He works, he has muscles, so he can go out and get a job, but then he's not consistent. He's not mentally checked in. Okay, now the baby comes, and now he has no emotional capacity to deal with it. Okay, but I want you to understand something. The older he gets, when a male becomes around, or when he grows to the age of around 30, okay, a male at 30, a female around 20 to 25, okay, and their brains develop a lot faster, okay. They say that 25-year-olds are still, you don't develop your full brain until you're 25, all right? So literally, the perfect age for a female to be married would be around 25 years old. There's some very mature at 20 to 25, okay, depending on how they've been raised and brought up, depending if they have a father and a mother, or if they just have a mother, okay? Now, it is a proven fact. Do your research. Don't get mad at me. Do not try to beat me up. That they said that a lot of the people that were in prison, it was because they did not have parents, okay? They said that they found that the ones that had parents were able basically to be rehabilitated a lot faster. But they said also equally those who were raised by their fathers. They said that if they were raised by their fathers, they had the same capacity as if they were raised by father and mother. Go do your research on that. That's all I'm going to say. Okay? I'm going to still do my research on that as well. I'm going to do a lot more. So I'll bring that information. What I'm saying is, it's better when you have a father and a mother. Okay, because moms nurture, fathers, okay, protect, dads provide, okay, and your mothers care for, caregiving, okay, which is very important. Nurturing is more sustenance. Care is more that gentleness that women have that you need, because it's encouraging, it's important, okay, for your mind, your emotion. And then dads are disciplined, okay? Child's acting up, the mom's telling, sit down. Dad walks in and just looks at them. They just sit down, okay? God made that. That's what God did, okay? We need our mom's emotional, our caregiving capacity, because we need to have that. That helps us grow in a different way, but we also need the discipline of our father, okay? Now, last but not least, when you take a young man who is at 20 years old, 25 years old, he doesn't have a financial base. You marry him because he's young, strong, and can go all night long, but you do not have a man. You have a person who is growing into manhood. So that's where a lot of the arguments, the irritation, the finances. I know it because I was married at a young age, and I will tell you from my own experience, I was physically prepared, but I was not financially prepared to be a father because of the way I was raised with my dad and my mother. And my dad was an exceptional man, so this is an exception to the rule. I had a mental capacity, but I did not have the emotional capacity to be a father at 22 years old. Okay, so you got it from the horse's mouth. If I would have waited till 30, I would have been an amazing. One of my children said, "You were an incredible father." Okay, one said, "You were chill. You were a good father." The other one said, "You're a good father." He said, "But at times we had a lot, and at times we had little, so we didn't know which way it was going to go at times." Okay, as I was growing into capacity, but that is because I had a good father. That doesn't normally happen, but I mean, it was 22 years. Okay, I was officially married for 25 years, but we lived together for 22 years. So I was more mature than most young men, but I seen the capacity. Emotionally, it was very difficult, and financially, it was very difficult for a while. Okay, I had to grow into it, and that's what I'm saying. So young women, your best bet, you being married, and a lot of women get this, 20 to 25, that's your peak time. That's a perfect time if you've done the things that I talked about. Okay, men, 30. Okay? 30 years old. I'm not saying 25. I'm not saying 28. I'm not saying 29 and a half and 3/4. I'm saying 30. Why? Because you need to go to college. And then after college, around 22, you need at least 8 years of making money, saving money, buying your home, managing your finances before you take on the responsibility of a wife and children. All right. There. I laid the groundwork. But now I'm going to go into the second half and explain from the groundwork how to build that beautiful home. When we surrender to what God naturally made us, if He made you a woman, if He made you a man, and I'm not knocking or going against anything or anyone, I'm just speaking my truth. And what I'm saying is, when you learn how to be a real man, and you really learn that from the Word of God, you also learn that from those who have lived the Word of God in real time, meaning how to apply it, male or female. When you surrender to what He made, and God made a man, to be a protector, to be a provider, not to sit around the house and not let a woman take care of you. And we're going to get into this part where you're working and she's working, because at a certain point, there's certain times where you might need to both. I was listening to two ladies yesterday. I'm telling you, listen, two young ladies in college, and they were saying, "Well, I'm working right now. He's going to school. I'm going to school." She said, "But I'm hoping." Listen to this. I'm hoping. These are very intelligent women, young women. She said, "I'm hoping he gets a very good job, so I don't have to do this work, and I can open me a little nail shop and just have a little business on the side, and he can take care of me." Smart young woman. You know why? Because women are not built with the capacity to do what men do in the world. Now chime in on that on the comments if you don't understand what I'm saying, and I'll give you my definition. The women who do, they become very masculine, and it's hard for them to find a mate, because men do not adhere to a female with masculine energy any more than a woman adheres to a male with female energy, or feminine energy. You don't want your man coming up to you with feminine energy. You want him to come up with masculine energy, but not to be macho. And you want a female to come up with feminine energy, but not to be like, "Oh, I can't do anything." No, you want her to have some type of strength. Oh, I'm messing up. I'm starting the second show already. Thank you for being here with me. You guys have been listening to Jay Wilson on the Jay Wilson Show, and I look forward to connecting with you again. Take care. God bless, and bye-bye.